mean business. I'm Maureen Cumpstone. I'm the entrepreneur in residence here at Ursinus. I run the Imagine Center for Integrative and Entrepreneurial Studies. And I'm also an alum. I graduated in 1979. So welcome. Thank you to the alumni, UC Alumni Council. They're a group of individuals, 50 individuals that put together programming like this that supports and encourages and engages alumni. So we are very happy to have you all here this evening joining us, as well as our panelists. So without further ado, I am going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, their name, their company, their year, and tell us a little bit about your idea or how you got started in business as part of your introduction. This is going to be very conversational. We'll have some time, about 10 minutes at the end, for questions and answers. But if you feel like you'd like to ask a question as we're going along, please feel free to do so. Okay? So with that, I'll start with Jackie. Okay.
So my name's Jackie Gleason. We have a winery. My husband Steve's right over there. We have a winery called Four Lanterns Winery in Paso Robles. I graduated from Ursinus in 1982. Which my tour guide wasn't even born yet. And we got into the wine business kind of just by pure luck, actually. My husband has a background in finance, and I have a background in healthcare. After Ursinus, I went to, it's now called Acadia University, did my master's in physical therapy, then went to University of Chicago and got my MBA, and that was over a course of time. I was in first straight physical therapy and then got into administration. And so my background was more of the HR, people management, whereas my husband's background was in business. But he comes from a long line of engineering, kind of building, creating kind of things. So the combination of our two skill sets really landed us where we are.
Great, thank you, Jackie. Alex?
Good evening, everybody. I feel like we're in school. Good evening, everybody. Alex, PA. Oh my gosh. I graduated here in 2009. I was a politics major, 2 minors in communications and American studies. And what actually helped me start what I'm doing today was I started right here on this college campus. I launched an organization called Rising Suns here. It was a way to empower Black men on campus. And I ended up getting an internship on Capitol Hill, working with the Center of Pennsylvania. The summer going to my senior year. And because of that whole experience, I was like, I am not going to law school. And so I figured I want to know where this could take me. And like, this idea just got me an internship on Capitol Hill. What else could I do? So I decided after I graduated, and I was hyped because I was a class commencement speaker too. And getting homecoming king. All the wins. After that, I decided to move to Philly to turn Rising Suns to a nonprofit. So it started off like helping Black men become change agents in their neighborhoods and doing community service projects and mentoring other young men. And I decided to scale it and call it One's Up to become more inclusive and more focused on young people who are disadvantaged from economic opportunities. And so I designed a 11-month fellowship called the One's Up Fellowship, which my young people are in there right now finishing up programming, but it's really helping these young people uncover their talent, their passion, gain transferable job skills in spite of the barriers that they face. So something that started here is now my full-time job. I got staff and be able to do amazing things, but all started from right here, actually, which was Unity House, was kind of like right here in this area anyway. So it's kind of fun coming back full circle to be here to talk to you guys about it. So thank you for having me again.
Yeah.
I want some of Alex's energy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, how you doing? Rob Gilfillan. I graduated in 1991-ish, and that's a longer story after a couple glasses of wine. So I kind of had a non-traditional route going through school. I was here for about 1.5 years. I took some time off for a variety of reasons. Really, I kind of wasn't ready to go to school. And when I was ready to come back, I ended up commuting and worked full-time and went to school, which quite frankly was the best thing could have happened to me because you got to be highly organized. I bartended 4 days a week at nights would get up, take my classes in the morning, and I actually finished, if you figure out from beginning to end, I finished within 4 years. It was a great experience, both living here as well as commuting. I mean, I really loved it. So I finished, I was a politics major, business minor. And it's coming out of school, I think I didn't really value what I got out of being here until several years later. And I think it was really when I started to try to put my career together. I too thought I was gonna be a lawyer. I met a bunch of attorneys, they all said the same thing, like they appreciated law, but they didn't like being an attorney. I think that was consistent. But I learned that my time here taught me how to think critically and really consider a lot of different options. So I looked at things a lot differently. I could see different perspectives, and I really got all that from being here. So I did the whole .com thing back in the late '90s. We started an ASP, which is basically an online software business, that in '99 got a bunch of funding. Gung-ho, there was a significant market correction in 2000. We spent a lot of money, none of the money showed up. So we built some tools specifically for the industry I'm in now, because the industry is kind of a mess. And my business partner and I decided to basically purchase the assets of the company and basically become our target market, and that's how the company was founded. We'll talk more about that later. I've been doing it for 23 years.
And what's the name of your company?
Company's name is Sonero.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that introduction. And so the way that we'll work, it'll be very conversational. I'll ask the panel a few questions. As I said, if you have a burning question, please feel free to ask. But we will have time at the end as well. So we sort of jumped into a little bit about how did the skills you learn at Ursinus shape your career in entrepreneurship. Does anybody want to elaborate on that a little bit more?
You know, one of the things that I learned at Ursinus from a student standpoint was discipline and not letting hard work in front of you stop you. So some of my classes that I had were very difficult, and I had to like put my nose to the grindstone and really put the effort in to really do well in the class. And as I went through the rest of my life in different points at work or different other academic institutions I went to, I would always think about that. You know, always think about are you gonna let this defeat you and stop you in your life, or are you gonna put the effort in and keep going? And I think that was really helpful. That transition from high school to college is big, and so Ursinus was my first attempt at that, and it was successful that way.
Great, thanks, Jackie.
Mine's a lot. I mean, the biggest thing is, so my title is Chief Troublemaker. And I gave myself that title because it comes from having a liberal arts degree, where you're challenging the status quo and systemic way things are in society. And so I realized that, like, taking my CIE classes, I got to change a lot of how I see in life. But I think the biggest thing about it, because Ursinus is so small, I got to do what's the most important thing that I love about my job, is foster relationships. And so because Ursinus is so small, I got to be in a relationship with not just the students, but faculty, you know, and I thought that was really important for me in my journey, not realizing how much that was gonna help me with doing my work, where you got to be able to foster relationships, especially when I was trying to do things on campus, and we had tried to do some events, and we were an actual recognized organization on campus, but we wanted to find out ways to do things. So we partnered with other student organizations. And that's when I realized how to be sourceful, you know? So now I'm able to do things I'm able to do because of just how much I made Ursinus, the campus, my playing field. And crazy enough that everything I was doing on campus was able to be transferred over to the things I do now. But I can't thank Ursinus enough for having me think so much outside the box of just life. And it's allowed me to see how we can really make changes in our society and challenging the status quo. But I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that Ursinus got me in this liberal arts thing. But I can't thank them enough for me to really understand the way that life should just be and be able just to challenge those things.
One of the entrepreneurial skills is thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
So we,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's that persona
That's true, too.
that's right
You're
there.
You're right. That's
So-
true.
I think, just to kind of go off what Jackie was saying, I think, you see this years later, mine was accountability, so I tried to pull the sympathy card a couple times, like, look, I'm working full-time, and, I'm not gonna be able to do this, I got this, and this, and nobody gave me an inch. I mean, they're like, look, it's due when it's due, I don't care if you're working 80 hours a week or partying 80 hours a week, it's done. And I remember I bitched and complained about it, but I got it done, and it just taught me I gotta be real disciplined, and it is what it is, man. I mean, so, those, you grow through going through tough times, grit, so, I appreciate that. I pounded into my kid's head, like, nobody learns anything from being successful. You gotta fail and you gotta go through tough stuff, so that was kind of my lesson at an early age.
Well, along that same line, I'm going to go off script already, thinking out of the box. So I think what people would like to hear is, what has your journey been, and what were the skills that you needed to grow your business? Because I think people want to hear that. So, Alex, you want to start?
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, am I throwing you for a loop?
No, I mean, no, yeah, I'm like, wow, you got me thinking about the journey. Like, oh man. Honestly, I had a humble beginning, just to let you guys know. Before I got to Ursinus, my first day at Ursinus, the first night, I didn't leave because I didn't have a bed to sleep in about a few years. And I did not want to go outside. I would just have to be in the bed. Sometimes they would take for granted, and I just did not want to leave, just wanted to be in that bed. But just to see that the times between then, you talk about this whole thing about grit and not realizing that Ursinus became more of my home. I stayed here over the summertime. I got to really get acquainted with faculty and staff, and so that's what I think for me was I was a tour guide, and so from just to be able to do the things I've been able to do and to understand that where I am now, and you just said this up to this really big, the things I went through in life, you find out it prepares you for the things you want to do, and business is a huge risk. You don't know. Sometimes you don't know what's gonna happen, I have 6 staff and I love it, but I could brag about being a boss, but I'm like, your paychecks and your salaries is on my head every single day. I've got to make sure that they have food on their tables and also the community work that I do. I love to make this a business, but as much money I'm bringing in, I gotta give it right back away. But I remember the time where I failed. It wasn't easy first leaving out. I didn't have no money, didn't know what I was gonna do, but I was passionate about this work, but I also knew that Ursinus was the family I could always come home to if anything was to happen, which is why I moved to Philly, was one of the things. I was I wanted to make sure I had the support just in case and having that safety net, but making room for failure, and just like you were just saying, you can't really succeed unless you appreciate failure. And that journey for me was amazing because now it helped me to grow and build my character as an individual, but able to understand the importance of building out the organization that I need to do, So I'm just glad that I'm able to be where I am now, but I'm already thinking about what the next steps are. Because I love this work, but it's 15 years and it takes a lot, out of you. So I love it, but I'm there's more things I want to be able to do. But I really can't thank Ursinus enough after being here today. Just wow, there's so many things I forgot that I learned and picked up that really helped me come here. But the biggest thing was having meaningful relationships with people.
Great. Ross, how about you?
So I have a few things. So one, I just want to talk about, I owe a lot to this school. There was no, there's no internet back when I was going through it. Not like a website and I'm gonna I'm gonna fill out one application, it's gonna go to a billion things and the money's gonna flow in. So I worked with the financial aid department and went through a huge ass book and found all the things I could apply to get money. And I would get $300 there, $200 there. I said I was gonna go environmental law, I was during the Exxon Valdez stuff, and I got $500 from Exxon. Checks was rolling in, and I had a coach through the whole thing. I'm this is unbelievable. And I don't think I could have gotten through without that, you know, so, I mean, again, that just shows you, like, just keep at it, just keep at it, just keep at it. But I developed some really unbelievable relationships that, even though I was here a year and a half, I still have a group that I keep in touch with, I mean, weekly. And, you know, every single one of them came from humble beginnings, every single one of them. And they all worked their ass off. 2 of them were first generation college. Their parents never went to school. And, you know, I mentioned this the other day, as my youngest is graduating tomorrow, kind of teary-eyed about it. But the one thing I've said, and I'm thankful to the school as well, is when you have kids, what's interesting is you watch these kids get up, and it's the same no matter where you are in life. You're gonna be the average of the top 5 people you hang out with. You just are. If you hang out with shit, you're gonna be shit, right? It's just what it is. And I'm really lucky that the individuals that I met here and throughout my life are just quality driven, honest, just good people, and above all, they have a high sense of gratitude. And you know, I feel blessed with everything that has gone on in my life, and this is one of those things. So you know, just on the other thing I was thinking about too, when you mentioned is, you know, what prepared you moving forward is, I always say, like, I've got average intelligence and above average social skills, and that's kind of what got me through. And I am awesome at identifying A players. I'm really good at that and motivating the crap out of them. It's not necessarily me, you know, so.
Great, thanks, Rob. Jackie, how about you?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, we're very verbose.
I know.
So talk a little bit about your growth and your journey.
In terms of our business.
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, so we've been in business now for about 9 years, and flexibility is probably the most important thing. Flexibility, and then seizing the opportunity. Not jumping in at the opportunity, but seizing the opportunity, because opportunities come your way not all the time, and so you have to be able to discern whether or not it's a good thing to follow. And then being able to multitask and do wear a lot of different hats. My husband makes the wine, runs a production facility, manages the vineyards, and I do the staffing and the training and you know, the front of the house stuff. And you just, I would say, you know, just being flexible and being spontaneous, and that's about it.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
curious, I am, sorry.
Sure, absolutely.
Can you, so you gentlemen have been kind of in your positions, but it seems like you and your husband started very differently to what you're doing now.
Correct.
So what made you, how did you feel comfortable to not jump ship, but say, like, we're gonna do this, like, this is.
Well, I think we were at the times in our life where we were comfortable, like, financially in the position to do something like this. And my husband was on a job where he traveled a ton and was ready, he was looking forward to doing something different. And this would have been kind of a project where both of us could work together, do a lot of different things, you know, work doing a diverse group of things, both of us, take us out of where we were and moving into an environment that we love. And I kind of had faith that it was the right thing to do, you know? It just, probably when I say faith that it was the right thing to do, it was a lot of the different skill sets that we both had experience in, and we love wine. And who doesn't, right?
Well, my first time having wine was actually senior at our science. Yes. Professor Melrose had the bomb wine dinners with guest
They have
speakers.
wine dinners here now?
Yes, yeah, R.I.P. to him, but he was amazing. But he would have guest speakers, and then he said, "Alex, you wanna go?" Hell yeah. 21, I'm there. So that and cheesecake were the 2 things I got here at the first time and in love with cheesecake and Wine, you can't beat two.
Food and wine always does that. We'll be able to enjoy something a little bit later. All right, so moving on, let's talk a little bit maybe about priorities in the pandemic. So how have your priorities changed from when you first started your business? And has the pandemic shifted how you run your organization? And I'll start with Rob.
So I'll just give you, I didn't talk much about us, but so we've been around for our 23rd year. So and it was started with, you know, 3 dudes in a truck and a credit card and just kind of figuring it out. And we've got 235 employees in 5 offices, and we do work internationally, and it's been a fun journey. I think one thing that is, I'm gonna break out the first few years. So when you start a business, it's kind of an interesting question. When you start a business, like, so what are you thinking about the first few years? Like, man, how to make payroll? Like, the amount of times I put payroll on my credit card and hid it from my wife, like.
Does she know yet? Does she know?
Oh yeah, she knows. I told her years later.
Yeah, I did that.
Say it again, say it one more time.
And it's funny, like, well, who's your target client? I'm like, man, anyone's got a checkbook and needs work done. So you get several years into it, and I still remember we hit about 5 or 6 million in revenues, and I sat down with a business partner, and we were like, so what are we doing here? I mean, and you know, my initial reasons for doing it was because I loved the industry I'm in, which is, it's basically AV. It's all this really cool stuff, and meeting spaces and video walls, and it's neat. And I loved it. And we had a differentiator, which was our industry is kind of a mess. A lot of people that are really, they're techie, but they don't know how to run a business, and they focus on all the right things, which are not good for businesses. And we decided, like, look, we want to do something a little different. So we decided to kind of focus on the employees, the industry, and some significant differentiators, and actually grow an asset as opposed to a lifestyle business, which was a big switch for us. And we developed core values and all this other stuff that you do along the way. We run it very much like a corporation, even though we're a small company. The pandemic hit, I will say, is my worst day in our professional career for a variety of reasons. But I had to lay off about 72 people on one Friday, and there were tears in the office. It was awful, you know. Luckily, we came out of it strong, and the majority of those people that we wanted back, we brought back. The thing that's been tough post-COVID is the whole culture thing, and trying to create an environment where people feel like they fit in, they're passionate, they have purpose, and trying to make it individualized, I guess it's really hard.
Yep.
And I gotta tell you, I'm not saying we're great at it. We're really wrestling with it, and we've hired a whole new HR team to try to figure it out, but it's trying to make the employee feel like they've got more purpose. And we've always been pushing the purpose of the business, and we give back to the community, but that's been a struggle.
Yeah,
And then remote employees, making them feel part of something. We never had any turnover. We have 20% turnover on a regular basis now, and it's not that they're leaving because they don't like working for the company. It's because I just want to do something different, or, you know, I just, for whatever reason, it's a variety of different reasons, you know. So, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's fun. It's a fun challenge because we're reinventing ourselves. But it's a challenge.
and that's what it takes sometimes to continue to reinvent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alex, you wanna talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, so I try to say non-for-profit because they gotta make profit.
Right, you gotta bring in
Right,
money.
gotta bring in money. So a lot of that space, you know, because of the money's coming in, it's not like I sell things, not services. It's like I gotta apply for grants. So I'm like trying to kiss foundations' asses, you know. And there's a lot of that, but also you find out that like a lot of philanthropy, they want to use these certain words like post-secondary and like innovation and stuff like that. So you don't know that. They don't tell you that. So you just keep applying for things, you keep getting rejected, and you don't know why. So there's got a lot of that going on. And then like it got to a point where like, well, we gotta think outside the box. And so I designed a fee-for-service model where we would charge organizations, schools, and companies for services. So there was Jordan Brand and Nike were trying to come into Philly to run this whole big scholarship program for high school students, and one of our partners recommended us, and it was like, hell yeah! So like 3 years of money just came in from working with Jordan Brand and Nike
Wow.
and helping them running programs. They just paid us, and I used that money to run the programs, and I found out, oh, I could do this. So I started charging schools to run after school programs, and I'm like, well, fucking great. We got a whole model here that's working. But as like anything, like business, you want to scale it, and if you're going to scale anything, you need more money. And I didn't think about that when I was thinking about scaling. So I'm like, all right, now I gotta go come back and kiss your asses. And so, but with that happening though, we got to like really change a lot about our language. But there's a lot of inequity in philanthropy. There's a lot of foundations who give to people because they feel comfortable to them, and a lot of times they don't look like me. And so I had to work twice as hard as my white counterparts just to get the money that I needed to do my program. And it was tough. It was a huge struggle. But thankfully enough, I got, oh my gosh, one of the dopest young ladies in the world. She did Peace Corps, and she came on board. She said she loved writing grants, and she was better than I was. And so I got on, she started doing contracts, and then she came on part-time, and now she's full-time with me. She's my COO. So like she went literally like because of her leadership skills. And that's the thing about me, is that I want to make sure I also build new leaders. I know I'm the leader of everything, but I also have two women who are my left and my right, and they have a lot of to say. I talk when I'm spoken to. You know, but that's the beauty of it. So I have like 5 staff now. I'm gonna get to you one, you know, at some point in my life I'll get to that staff. But having 6 staff and to do the work we're doing in the community, it's a lot. And so there's a lot that I have to do, a lot of pressure on me, because if anything screws up, it's back on me. And so there's a lot of that to deal with. And through the pandemic, you know, you guys know George Floyd also happened in the pandemic. And so there is a lot of this, oh, let's give out money. And it's like, I appreciate it, but I don't want to get money because you now feel like you have to because somebody I never met in my life just got killed. All right, and that's not fair to me that you're just giving it away because you feel bad. I don't need guilty money. Like, I need you to understand what I'm doing, the outcomes I'm trying to reach, the vision I have, the stories that I have here, the testimonies I have here, and the work that's being put in, and see why you have to give me this money. You know, so like I had to make sure these foundations just knew a lot about that. So I mean, I'm happy to be where we are. You know, we're at $2 million. I don't know. I'm gonna get there one of these days. Slow burns. But you know, just to see where we are, like, you know, we actually officially launched this about a year ago.
Right.
So I'm just excited to see, you know, where it's headed. But yeah, it's a very tough journey. But when you do things that you love, I always feel like, you know, you never work a day in your life. And seeing these young people every day and being able to be engaged with them, even still being a boss, that's one thing I always wanted to do, is still make sure that I did not lose my focus on why I'm here, is to be with these young people. So yeah, that's a lot of balance. But you know, I'm just glad I can still be here and things are still happening. I know I have to hear from them because I wasn't there today, but they'll be okay. But you know, I found myself also playing a father figure role because I'm dealing with a lot of young people who don't have a positive male figure in their lives. And it's a lot of responsibility on me, on top of the staff, on top of making sure this work happens, you know. But there's a lot of pressure in there, but it's the beauty of this thing. So.
Great. And I remember when we first met, I think you were just starting.
Yeah, actually,
we had zero money.
Well, yes,
And now you have
that
$2
was.
million.
Yes, and we're just talking about the idea for one's up. And that's yes, that's
So we went from 0 to 2 million in a couple of years. There we go.
That's what we talked
Jackie, how about you?
So our winery, we're a small boutique winery. We sell to people who come in the door. Okay, so our doors closed March through June. So you think about, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Well, what did you guys all do in the pandemic? There you go. There you go. So we had to be innovative. Again, that brick wall. How are we gonna surmount that brick wall? So what we did is did the Zoom tastings. We increased our sales. We did marketing, that kind of stuff. At the end of the whole pandemic, our business had grown by 50%.
Wow.
And it was not because of what we talked about, but it was because we were flexible. We made a lot of changes in our winery related to the pandemic, which actually turned out to be very useful. So our tagline for our winery is wines we like for people we like. We like people. We are both people, you know, we enjoy people. That's and you have to enjoy people if you have a winery, because it's a very social, you know, activity. These two over here are wine club members, and they're gonna come and pour for us tonight. They used to live in California and moved back. Laura is originally so this is Laura and Wyatt, France. And they're our wine club members, and look how wonderful they are. They came here to help us pour. But anyways, you know, we you know, because of the pandemic and because of you guys being locked inside, I think we had to use that opportunity to our advantage, and watched it happen pretty quickly. You know, could see the effects of the pandemic in terms of what do people want to do. You know, you talked about a wine tasting that you did with another winery, but anyways, it was good. It was very successful for us.
Which is good for you guys, because a lot of people were going the opposite direction,
Yeah,
right?
we were very fortunate, but it helped our business model too with the changes that we made.
Great. All right, so moving along, what are some common misconceptions people have about your business, and how can we combat those misconceptions and communicate more effectively? So I'm gonna throw that one to Alex.
Don't do that to me, or I'm here like, gosh, I want to talk, man. Can you come back to me?
I'll
Let me
come back
think
to you.
about-
All right, Jackie, we'll start with you.
All right, can you say that again?
What are some common
Common
misconceptions people
Okay, so
have
we
about
don't-
your business?
We don't sit around and drink wine all day.
That's a bummer. And how do you combat those misconceptions and communicate more effectively?
So the one thing that people assume is that when you own a winery, you hire people to do all the work, all this kind of stuff. We had an event the other night. We do Sunday night concerts regularly, and one of our daughters came to visit us, and she had her friends with us, and her friend said, "I just saw your mom cleaning up broken glass," and she said, "Yeah," and she goes, "Why is your mom cleaning up a mess?" And she goes, "Why wouldn't she?" So we are very, very hands-on, and I think what people don't understand is when you're all in it like this, you do whatever it takes. I will clean the bathrooms and the toilets all the time if I need to, And I think what happens is that's a reflection of your character, of your what you want to convey to not only your employees, but also to the people coming through the door, that you care enough about this business that you'll do whatever it takes. In the wine industry, you have a lot of upfront investment, and it doesn't come back to you for a while. So you're putting in as much as you can, because we basically work for free. We only started paying ourselves, 2 years ago? Last year. So we
I get that.
I know, you get that for sure. So, it is a labor-intensive, time-intensive industry, but it is a lifestyle in the sense that we get to enjoy people who come from all over. We get to enjoy beautiful wine. The wine industry is a very friendly industry. Paso is a great community. It's not cutthroat. It's very supportive, but it is a lot of work. It is a lot of time.
Rob, how about you?
Sure. So, by the way, I can relate to that. People come in when, the toilet's clogged. Hey, Rob, the toilet's clogged. We got a facilities guy. We don't want to deal with it. I'm like, all right.
We're still getting calls now.
Really? Our industry, we're in a very technical industry, and it's, as I mentioned, it's the best way to describe it, it's a lot of audiovisual systems, and it's cool stuff. And primarily our focus is on, we bill ourselves as a service-focused audiovisual conferencing solutions provider that's focused on delivering exceptional meeting experiences. And the last piece is really our big differentiator, because our industry, it's cool stuff. And the reason why we actually decided to focus on this industry is because it's a highly fragmented industry. There are not a lot of major players, like there's not like a Cisco or anything else. There are a couple big companies that design and build audiovisual solutions there are two that are $1 billion. And then they drop to like 300 million, this is worldwide, and 300 million, then it goes to 100, then it's sub 100. We're top 20 in North America, and we're not that big, I mean, compared to a big company, right? And so there's not a lot of business acumen. The average size company in the industry is about $2 million. And they're usually guys that love the gear, love the technology. So the problem is that, and I'm gonna ask this, anyone who goes and walks into a classroom or something else, how many times you walk into a boardroom conference or whatever, you hit a button and it works? It never, ever works, right? So the meeting experience is completely shit. It's awful. So, and it's funny because when we go and talk to prospective clients, we're like, look, how many times you go in? They go, oh, it never works. You know, what do you do? Do you call help desk? No, Bob down the hall knows where the magic remote is, stands on the table. They get the thing working and they say, okay, don't touch it. But it's this failed meeting experience that never gets reported, right? So our big thing is we're trying to change everyone's perspective. Like, we're gonna provide all the tools and focus on clients and what their desired outcomes, use case, and business applications are, because that's why they're spending the money. And our industry focuses on what it is and how it works. And the problem is everyone gets so psyched with the gear and the whiz bits and all this garbage that nobody focuses on like training, adoption, migration. Like, the best thing that, well, our best compliment is like, man, nobody can use these rooms because they use it all the time. And you know, as you can imagine, our business has gone through the roof since the pandemic. We have more business we know to do with, I just can't get product for people, right? So, but you know, we're all about positively impacting the industry, and our industry is very slow to get there. They trying to get them to understand what we're doing is very difficult. They just get sucked into the gear.
Thank you.
I was still trying to think. I mean, it's like nonprofit work. I'm like,
I
what's the
know,
misconception things?
Well, what's the misconception about nonprofit? You don't need, you don't
Well,
need
I think I
money.
talked about like the thing about the money thing. Yeah, like, yeah, you gotta need money. Like, I think the misconception is that nonprofits and businesses are not the same, and like literally, it's the exact same thing. And I didn't realize that I was like those people, I'm never gonna start a business, I don't want, there's too much of a risk, I won't do it, but I'm gonna start this community organization. And I realized that the whole time I was doing business. The whole time, that's on my master's, some business classes, like, you know, I had a sign, I should have done that, but I think that's the biggest misconception, that like, it is a business, and I had to learn to operate this as a business, like, and I did not learn a lot about business, but a lot of it came from failing. And just as much as like learning about when a budget comes in, it's like you don't think about budget until money starts to come in, you know? It's like one comes after the other. So I think that's that. The other thing, I wanna just bring this up, is that I've also had to deal with murder. I've lost 5 of my young people in my program in the past about 10 years. And I think that there's also could be this misconception that we're always okay, you know, especially being a leader. And so I had to find myself to be okay grieving. I got one of our funders was able to give us a group therapist for my staff and my young people. But like the last one is actually like one of my best friends who helped me start this as soon as I graduated from earth science, and been helping me ever since. And you know, and he was killed last year right before we piloted this fellowship program. And so you know, there's been a lot that I think people don't realize, even with the work that goes on, is the importance of healing and wellness. There's this huge part that's being missed out in our communities around this. I know that we can talk about why murder is happening, but the biggest thing we could talk about as misconception is that with poverty, there's a lot of trauma that people are dealing with. And so when I'm finding out that people are being killed over the most dumbest things, you're finding out it's because they have not dealt with the things in their past, and it's only creeping up as they get older, and it's just perpetuating that cycle. And so like a lot of my work around healing and wellness is really important because that's what a lot of these communities need. There's a lot of generational things, oppression, poverty, and the things that goes along with those things. And so my work is very complex, you know, and I'm just trying to do my part in it. And what really sucks is that I have to be okay with realizing that I'm not gonna be able to change the world the way I want to. That's one of the hardest things, being a science college student like, I wanna change the world one day. And then you hit 35 and oh gosh, there's still all these issues, so, you know, time is ticking and you're just trying to do your part and I have to accept that I can only just do my part and save and help those that I can. But I had to come to that reality in that sense too.
Yeah, yeah. A very complex job, it sounds like, yeah. All right, so, Jackie, what piece of advice would you give alumni or students, because we have both in the audience, on how to bring an entrepreneurial spirit to either their work or the classroom?
Okay, students, use your liberal arts education and take as much as you can within your requirements for your major, take a variety of classes, because you will need a variety of mindsets or understandings of things out there. You need to be a good writer, you need to understand science, you need to understand politics, you need to understand business.
That's right.
And you need I was a health and PE major, and it's given me a solid foundation for good health my whole life. And that's part of the science end of it too. And then for alumni, I would say just kind of how I started. Don't be afraid. Don't let your fear paralyze you. You know, you are all smart. You're all here, you're all very smart. And people will tell you no. You know, I heard no my whole life, and you can't let somebody beat you, right? So just keep going, plow through, get the resources you need, you know, whether they're academic or emotional but just don't let people stop you.
Rob, advice?
Yeah, there are a couple other things actually, because you know, it's funny when you get out and you start doing things, you know, running a business, you're like, man, I wish I had that finance class. You know, and I'm like, what's a balance sheet? You know, like, I mean,
Yeah.
I would add, you know, depending on what you do, I would say basic finance. And, you know, the other sounds crazy is depending what you get into, is you don't have to understand how to be a programmer, but you have to understand programming, because depending where you go today, like you're gonna end up dealing with managing, interfacing something with someone, and they can just snow you on everything, because you have no idea what they're talking about, right? So I had a tough time getting through that with our development team and trying to just make sure that the information they were giving was accurate, you know? So, so I agree with everything you're saying there. There are a couple things. I'm gonna use my daughter as an example. You know, one thing I love both my kids a ton. One thing that's really a struggle for my daughter is, like, she's a 4.0 student. You give her something and it is absolutely perfect. I mean, she will give you exactly what you want. And my wife has always said, man, that is one of the best qualities of Hadley. And I said, it's gonna be a challenge, because she's scared to death to fail.
Yeah.
She won't go out on a limb and try something new. And I took a different tact with my son, which is kind of interesting, where end of his junior year, I'm a big morning routine guy. I get up, I'm a scripture guy, religious guy, so I read some scripture, and then I read something that gets me motivated. Like, I'm all about little motivational sayings and quotes and everything, so I start doing one a day and sticking out his mirror in the morning. There are hundreds of them, like all over his mirror in the bathroom, the room and everything. And then he starts sending it back to me like, man, I failed 4 today, Dad. Hey, dude, I went down in flames today, Dad. I mean, and he has such a different attitude about things. He had a debilitating surgery with his knee that, I mean, he was captive of soccer, and he had to go through all this surgery and all this other stuff. And long story short, he never could get back to the sport he loved. And I thought it was gonna kill me. He's like, hey man, that's the way it rolls. You know, it's cool. I got other stuff I can do. Like, he just rolls and he will try stuff, and he's okay with failing. And he embraces it as part of the process and not an event.
Yeah, that's good.
And so I'm just kind of taking what you're saying, that, and the one thing I tried to do with him, and the reason why I have a routine in the morning is, the most important thing you can do, and I really mean this, is if you can get control of your head, and it is the most important thing, because your head will do some crazy shit to you. If you can get control of your head and keep a positive mindset to push forward, especially through some really tough times, it's probably one of the most important things you can do to train yourself. If you can learn that at a young age, I didn't get that till I was well into my 30s. I mean, I didn't have a high level emotional intelligence till I was like 38. And my kid's like light years ahead of where I am now. You know, it's unbelievable. But, getting those skills and understanding that is really important, no matter what you do.
You hit the routines, man. Morning routines, I did
Yeah.
not, oh my gosh. 20s wasn't having it, but 30s, oh yeah, I lived by morning routines. It's funny you said that. That's one thing I'm gonna say too for the college students. Try to start having routines in the morning now so that you can just be adapted and it'll be a habit for you as you get older. I actually finished reading this book called Atomic Habits
Oh,
by
James
James
Clear.
Clear.
It's great.
Definitely read that. So reading is part of my routine. So every morning I journal, I meditate, I pray, I read. I'm reading this book now called Untitled Soul. It just talks, yes. I like when you say books, you're like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, you're in there, right? There's a lot of like healing that goes on with that. So but like with one of the things that I've realized though, on top of that, students, I want to tell you guys to take advantage of this campus. Let it be your playing field. This is the time to test new things, partner with people. Maureen literally runs a whole office that I wish was here when I was on campus because my organization would have been to the roof at the time I graduated. But I would say take advantage of the resources you have on campus. You guys are spending a whole lot of money on tuition. So make every cent count. So I would leverage the college campus and those resources. As far as alumni, that's what Rob said, just go out and just do it. But I would just say to leverage the Ursinus alumni network. Last week when a good friend of mine, she was in Tulsa, she graduated my class in it's like 15 years ago plus. And we actually met up for coffee 2 days ago. And she works at Thomas Jefferson Medical Hospital, and now I've got free wellness healing classes and courses and programming for my students next year.
Wow.
All because of a connection.
Right.
And one thing I love about Ursinus is that you're gonna get your money's worth on that tuition because the alumni base here is very prominent. And I've realized so many of my friends are doing some amazing things that now they come and work with me. So I would just say if you're an alumni, definitely leverage the alumni network because there's somebody that's doing something that you need or want to do. And there's how many alumni? So I would say definitely take advantage. Even myself, but I would just say that definitely leverage the network. And it's like I said, it's all about fostering relationships with people. That's the other thing too, with current students, relationships. Know them now, because you never know who's gonna be doing what 10, 20 years from now. So make those meaningful relationships count.
And I think one of the things misconception is, and particularly for students, is that people, our Ursinus alum do want to help. They are willing to help. They're willing to help each other and they're willing to help you as students. So getting confident about reaching out and using that network is exactly what Alex is saying. Is just it's a resource in addition to all the other resources that are on campus.
I always tell people is like, that networking thing they say is not what you know, it's right, but it's false. It's who knows you. Everyone here knows Michael Jordan, that he doesn't know you, so what justice does that give you guys, right? But if people know you, they can always think about you for opportunities. So it's really good. That's why relationships are important, because people always have opportunities. People always think about stuff. And something comes up, they should be thinking about you on their mind. So that's where relationships is so important to have with people. And people can always remember you. So that was free consulting, unless you guys want, I can leave invoices for that little. But now, thank you so much again for this, Maureen.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna open it up to questions. We've done a lot of talking, and so now it's your turn. Yes?
Jackie, I'm curious, how many employees do you have?
So we have 12. They're all part-time. So most of them are in the tasting room. And we have one, maybe two people that help Stephen out at harvest time.
So they
But
get
we have a
paid,
lot-
they get paid to drink and then.
Okay, that's blue on my face was wrong. I'm like,
Yeah.
Do they pay you?
So
quit all this going to
So
California.
we do not allow our employees, just so you know, We do not allow our employees to drink when they're on the job. Other wineries do. We had a new employee that started one time and she said, my coworker was helping train her and she turns to Mary Kay and says, "So when do we start drinking here?" And Mary Kay goes, "After 5 o'clock." And she goes, "My sister's allowed to drink at work," and she goes, "Not at Four Lanterns." But you can operate, our staff love working because they look forward to the amount of time they come in. I think sometimes it loses its thrill if you work full-time at a winery. There's a lot of people that do that. But we have amazing staff. They're committed, they hang out after work, they love to sit around and have a glass of wine. But yeah, we've found it successful so far.
Yes, Sung.
Yeah, my name is Sung. I want to ask about management. I wonder how and where did you learn your management skills or knowledge? Is it just through the school courses, or is it more like just experiences, just like failures, or like internet or other resources? Because currently I can't even file my own tax yet, so I wonder how.
Good question, Sung.
No, I'll talk to that. I mean, man, I made so many mistakes. I mean, it's quite frankly, I kind of laugh, like, how did we get to this point with all the stuff that I screwed up? I mean, and that's genuine, and I'll say one thing that we're trying to go through now that we have not done a good job as a company is we've not done a great job of training a lot of the first level managers, and it's actually where some of our turnover is coming from. Because they're like, well, did you talk to them before they left? Like, no, it just came out of left field. I'm like, well, would you talk to them? Like, you listen to them, How about doing stay interviews, not exit interviews? Like, let's like, why are you staying? What do you love here? So, the cool thing today is there is so much information all over the place. And, I tell people when they come and start with this, I'm like, if you want to be taught, go work for a big company, like IBM or something. If you want to learn, we have an awesome culture to learn. There are a lot of really bright people, and we have mandatory 40 hours a week training we'll pay for. We supplement to send people back to school, we'll help pay for their school. Like, we want people to learn, because if we invest in them, they're gonna stay. But there are so many great free resources out there on every possible management topic in the world. I'll tell you, the 1 Minute Manager, you want a Cliff Notes version? I'm old, Cliff Notes. What's it called now? Spark Notes, yeah. My son's got Spark Notes. I'm like, what the hell is that? Is that 1 Minute Manager is a great place to start. It is a great book that's been, I don't know how many times it's renewed, but it's awesome. And it just gives you the basics.
Yeah, I learned here at Ursinus. I'm telling you, when I first started doing Rising Suns on campus, it was me and I had a group of guys with me. And it was crazy. Every Wednesday we're gonna have a meeting, and then we're trying to do some events on campus and trying to make sure everyone shows up. It's like, that was the first time I even realized that was management. But I had no idea at the time, being 19. But I had to learn, number one, about leadership and what that looks like for me. Two, there's a lot of things that comes with being a leader, because you gotta be okay with making mistakes and being okay to admitting those mistakes when you're wrong. That's because it's really tough to do, and the pride that comes with that. And being a grassroots organization, because at the time everyone was volunteering, it was like, okay guys, look, do whatever time you can. I can't actually do too much commitment because everyone's just volunteering. But then the money started rolling in, and then I didn't know what to do because I'm so used to volunteers, and then finally I didn't have that big of a structure at the beginning, and then I had to start firing people because people weren't doing their jobs, and this is very beginning stuff. And then I had to realize that you had to have the right people in place. I'm like, this is why people do interviews. Seriously, yes, really, it was well, maybe we got the money, we gotta get the program started, because it's when with grants, you have an X amount of time to get things done. So it's okay, the money's here, but you gotta hurry up, the program is gonna be done in April, and it's February. You're like, crap, I don't even have the time to even do the whole recruitment process. What do? You hire your friends. Don't hire your friends. Guys. Don't hire your friends. Yeah, it started off kind of good, but then like it was a lot of laid back experience there. But now that
everyone does that to start.
he's right, and then
Everyone
it's
does
like,
start.
it sucks. And I tried, and just like honestly, his friends were like, dude, just show up. Just show up. You know, but you also realize that there's people who have different skill sets, and sometimes as a leader, you can have too much expectations. And I found myself having way too much expectations, and their staff wasn't meeting up to those things. And like honestly, I realized a lot of why people have interview processes. Oh my gosh! But one of the things I do now, I'm really big on making sure my team feels appreciated, especially as a leader. So always, give them the kudos. I love to work out. So every Monday through Thursday, I get my staff, whoever wants to work out with me. We get home, go on virtual, and everyone. I mean, I run them. I'm not a trainer. Don't ask. I just know moves, and I tell them I don't know the names of them, but we're going to do them. In this amount of time, we're going to do them. But everyone just follow track. But doing these things for team dynamics, and we do staff retreats that has nothing to do with work, but for us just to be together. Fridays, no work. It's all wellness activities and just get our mind right for the staff and our young people. But I'm trying to build a culture where there's this, there's a family and community feeling. So not everyone doesn't feel like it's just at work, but you really feel like you're part of a family, and that's the whole community sense that we do. And also, like I say, I got a whole sense of humor, and I gotta have fun. So making sure that our work doesn't be taken too seriously, where you don't enjoy what you're doing. So I want to make sure that my staff actually gets the work done, what they're so good at doing. But it's like, let's also make sure we have fun in doing this stuff too, because we can get really wrapped up in things. So, but it's still a learning process. I've realized that managing, you're always going to learn as you grow and scale with stuff. So I'm still part of the journey of just learning that stuff.
So I would say, so what year are you?
I'm a rising senior.
Okay. So you have opportunities every single day to see management. You go into a store, you see management. You go into a restaurant, you see management. So I would observe the good, like go into a restaurant. Is it well run? Are there tables with glasses left on it, dirty plates left on it? Or do you go into another one and everything is clean? Just kind of look at the way and observe the way things work. I mean, I can tell you, I think these are great ideas, but you have to be observant to be a really good operational person, a good management person, because you can't have every single skill set that you need to be a good manager. So when you first start off, you have to do everything, but as time goes on, you have to hire the people around you that fill in the gaps that you don't have. I am not good at social media, surprise, surprise. So I hire someone to do all that stuff because it's just not my forte. I am not good at events planning. We have somebody doing that. I am good at customer service. I do love working with people. They've asked me to not work in the tasting room anymore because I stay at the tables and chat too long. They've given me the opportunity now to just roam and go and talk to whoever I please, and it makes all our customers happy. Isn't that a big change? But so you have to understand what innately you might be good at, and then try to understand what you don't have. But I mean, they're like you said, there's so many tools out there. But just understand what good management is, understand what you have, and then fill in the gaps.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. Yep. Well, we have two here. Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you spoke about misconceptions and communication. What techniques have you found work well towards communicating past preconceptions to a positive outcome?
Good question.
We had a staff retreat this couple of months ago. Actually, we're up in King of Prussia too, and we had hired a consultant come in, and we found out like one of the biggest things we had in miscommunication is that we all had different definitions for things. So like, what is the program? It's like, whoa, how do we define program? And we literally realized that these little terms and our staff was making sure why we weren't on the same page, because everyone had a different name for everything. So we actually created a system for everything. Be okay to ask questions, clarifying questions, but also if it seems like there's these terms or things that are not defined well, let's take a time back to identify those. And also because we're like a really fast-paced environment, we're now to have this whole stop and breathe moment because we were not stopping to just breathe and take things in and just reset as a staff. So we've been doing a lot of those things. But we realized that the biggest thing is that people are assuming I know what you're talking about. And now, oh no, can you ask a little bit more detailed things? So we're really, that's the things we've really been pushing up this year is like how do we really be more effective in understanding how we all communicate in those things. But communication is just a thing in this world that's just hard. Well, yeah, that's a really good question though.
I think I'm gonna answer this, but I might be answering something else. One thing that's, I know that was very difficult for us as growing was when you start getting busy, having a company goes from what I call command and control, which is, I used to say, come on, I'm like, oh my God, everyone is at my door all day long. I'm like the king of got a minute meetings.
Yeah.
King of got a minute. Well, I was my own worst enemy because all I was doing was saying, hey Rob, what should we do here? Do this. What should we do here? Do this. What should we do here? Do this. And my wife brought it up one day, and I was in my early 30s. She's like, well, how do they know what to do other than you telling them? I'm like, well, that's why they come and ask me. Well, again, how do they know what to do other than you telling them? And I'm like, okay. So, it's kind of like that, I hate to use this, what's called an adage or whatever. You can either give someone a fish or teach them how to fish or whatever it is, something like that. But, taking the time to walk people down the path, let them communicate the challenge to make sure there's consensus so you understand what they're talking about. They actually have a clear understanding what it is. And you might know where you want them to go, but lead them down the path and let them get there on their own and say, hey, congratulations, you were able to solve that. Good job. And it gives them the confidence to like, man, I got this. And then you say, maybe next time just kind of make a judgment call and come to me with the outcome. And if it fails miserably, you're probably gonna learn something from it. You're not gonna torpedo the company. I mean, just go on a limb and roll with it. But I think you used to, assume. We all make assumptions, and it makes an ass out of you and me, all the time, right? So it's the worst thing you can do because you're gonna try to solve a problem that isn't a problem and vice versa.
So what was your concern, like when you asked this question?
Yeah, I'm just curious because we've got an array of personalities, backgrounds, processes in place, and I come from an area outside of my current field, so I bring a scenario wherein I'm not viewed as being competent in what I do.
Okay.
So I'm just curious how it is, short of showing competence blatantly, how do I communicate with somebody in order to get them to a point where I can communicate to a positive outcome without having to show my chops?
Got you. So do you feel like they're treating you as it's not performing up to par, or?
No, more akin to being given my own work back to me as a reference point for how to proceed in a situation.
I think the biggest communication barrier he experiences at work, and I know because we both work from home, so I hear it all day, is he works for an international company.
Yeah.
There's people in Asia, it's a European-based company, there's people in the US, and the attitudes and the language barriers make communicating effectively very difficult. People in Asia communicate very differently than people in Europe who handle things very differently from a labor perspective than the United States does. That causes a lot of friction.
Okay. So, great points on either part. One of the things that I was thinking right away is you have to understand where the problem is coming from. You have to sit down and really try to get an understanding of the situation and the problem underlying. And thank you for clarifying that. So, the situations, you just have to know who you're working with. And if you're getting feedback or frustration from their end, you just have to point blank, what can I do to help this situation? What can I do to resolve this situation? And if they can nail down what they need, then that's your answer.
It's funny because it seemed like one thing I love to have taken an anthropology class being here because I learned a lot about the different cultures And I'm like, oh, sometimes, like the ignorant to so many things in my life, but it's like, I had to realize in some cultures, like, 'cause I'm like me, if I'm gonna do business with somebody, I don't wanna just like, so, what's the budget looking like? What is the numbers? Like, I wanna negotiate things. I wanna know more about you. Like, I really want to know who you are. But and there's some cultures that work like that, and there's some cultures that don't, you know, and I've realized that I had to learn, and I'm not trying to say if I used to do this, but what you were just saying with that, I had to learn to study the people that I'm going to be working with and get a better understanding, especially because there's a lot of cultural competency that comes with a lot of things, especially when you're doing international work. So there's a whole, you got different cultures come together, which is a beautiful thing, but I feel like for you, this is a good learning experience, you know? And it sucks to have to learn like this, but I had to understand that even like with my work too, that I had to understand what I knew, and that this is a good opportunity for me to broaden the things that I thought that I understood that I did not understand. And like I said, I know much more from your end, but like even with me working with young people, I'm dealing with young people who are identified as LGBTQ. So I have to be very mindful of the terms I use, you know, and pronouns. That's something I had to worry about years ago, but now I have to be mindful of the culture that I'm around, you know, so I have to like really be mindful of those things too, but and it really comes into miscommunication, unfortunately. Body language, tones, even text messages these days, you can't even say LOL anymore without people getting offended anymore, you know, so but yeah, but I learned a lot about like in your scenario, like the difference of like cultural competencies and try to understand how people interact, because everyone outside of America and they have their own different ways, and unfortunately even in America, we all are different on our own melting pot. But yeah, I had to learn that too in my work.
Well, this is all great conversation. I'm getting the word to wrap it up. And so if a couple things. So I want to thank you all for the great conversation. Invite you to carry on this conversation as we begin the wine tasting. So I have a couple details for you. There are 5 wine tasting tables right outside the door. I'm told by our wine folks here that you do not need to taste them in order. You can taste them in any order that you like. So feel free to do that. This red ticket then buys you a glass of wine or a non-alcoholic beverage at the beverage table, which is underneath the shield. If you haven't put your yellow ticket in for a raffle, go put your yellow ticket in. You might win something. We're gonna pull them at 8:45. And that's for logistics. I will wrap up the panelists by saying, where can we find you online? And then I'll invite everybody to drink wine and continue the conversation. So where can we find you online?
Best place to go to my LinkedIn profile. It's the best place to get me.
LinkedIn?
Yep.
Jackie, how about you?
Find my website.
Okay, website, Alex?
Well, website, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and I just got on TikTok.
Oh.
And my young people are like, keep me, right? I've been trying to stay up to beat everything. But yeah. But Alex PA, and then on TikTok it's Pop Bruce Johnson. If you want to know more about that, it's a long story. I know you're like, what? Yeah, I have this fictitious character that I do on the side. I'm not gonna hold you. If you want to know more, we can talk about it.
We're gonna talk about while we're drinking wine. So everyone, thank you so much for coming. Please enjoy the wine outside. Yep, one more thing.
So for what we decided to do is for anyone who purchases any wine, we're gonna donate 25% to the Bear to Bear Fund. We do have some order forms out there if you guys are interested.
So your clothes are like this.
Good standing.
Great job.
Just beyond.
Yes, time to bring it on, right?
That time, he's like, oh, I just want to say about your photos. I was like, hold on. I'm French.